Almost everyone who comes here is looking up. It is a July afternoon on the Champ de Mars in Paris. The tower is doing what it does to a skyline, and the crowd on the grass is pointed at it like a compass needle. But the ground underneath all of this has a name, and the name is not decorative. Champ de Mars, the field of Mars, Mars being the god of war. This lawn full of picnics was laid out for an army. The Champ de Mars runs from the foot of the Eiffel Tower down to the École Militaire, in the 7th arrondissement on the left bank of the Seine. It covers about 24.5 hectares, which makes it one of the largest green spaces in the city. It is also one of the youngest famous places in Paris, and it has changed its purpose about 4 times. Before the 18th century, there was nothing ceremonial about this ground at all. It was boggy, low-lying land on the edge of the city, and what it was mainly used for was growing vegetables. Market gardens. That is the starting condition for the most photographed park in France. Between 1752 and 1760, the École Militaire was built at the far end of it, a military academy for the sons of impoverished nobles. A school of that kind needs somewhere to drill. In 1765, the decision was taken to flatten the ground in front of it for maneuvers, and to give it the name it still carries. So this long open avenue is not a garden that later got used for parades. It is a parade ground that later got used as a garden. It opened as a drill field for military cadets in 1780. It was fenced off, and it was worked hard. Contemporary accounts describe maneuvers here involving as many as 10,000 men at once. The scale of the space makes sense the moment you stop thinking of it as a lawn and start thinking of it as a floor for formations. Then the revolution arrived and the field changed jobs again. It was renamed the Champ de la Réunion, the field of the coming together, ditched around its edge and given a ceremonial entrance. On the 14th of July 1790, it held the Fête de la Fédération, the celebration at which Louis XVI accepted the new written constitution. An enormous crowd stood on this ground to watch a king agree to be limited. Vegetable beds, then a drill field, then a revolutionary assembly ground, and then, a century later, a building site. Paris held a World's Fair in 1889, the Exposition Universelle, and the date was not chosen casually. It marked 100 years since the Revolution. A centenary needs a centerpiece, and the centerpiece was going to stand right here at the end of this field. The tower is named after Gustave Eiffel, but the shape of it was not his idea. It came out of his company, from two engineers on his staff, Maurice Koechlin and Émile Naugier. What they proposed was essentially a very tall pylon, a structure worked out from the mathematics of wind load rather than from any architectural style. The version they first drew was severe, and it was not obviously going to charm anybody. Stephen Sylvester, who ran the architectural division of Eiffel's company, is the reason it looks the way it does. He added the great decorative arches at the base and the glazed pavilion on the first level. Those arches carry almost no structural load. They are there to make an engineering diagram feel like a monument. And it works. Standing directly underneath, the thing reads as architecture rather than as a calculation, which is exactly what Sylvester was hired to achieve. The numbers are worth saying out loud. 18,038 separate iron pieces, cut and drilled off-site to tolerances that left almost nothing to be adjusted on the ground. Roughly 2.5 million rivets holding them together, and only about 300 workers on the site itself. It was less a construction project than an assembly of a kit that had been manufactured to be exact. Eiffel also took the money risk personally. Rather than being paid to build a monument, he accepted a 20-year operating concession, meaning he covered a large share of the cost himself and got the ticket revenue in return. He was betting that enough people would pay to go up it. That bet is the only reason the tower had a commercial argument for existing once the fair had packed up. It was dedicated on the 31st of March, 1889. It had gone up in a little over 2 years, and it was, at that point, the tallest structure anybody had ever built. I am going to do the thing most people here do not do, which is turn around and walk away from it, out of the park and into the streets behind, because those streets are also a designed object, and they are barely older than the tower. Between 1853 and 1870, Georges Eugene Haussmann was prefect of the Seine under Napoleon III, with an instruction to give Paris air, to connect it, and to make it beautiful. In 17 years, roughly 20,000 buildings were demolished, and about 40,000 were built. Whole medieval quarters were cut through to make the boulevards. What holds it together is a rulebook, facades in cut limestone, a height limited in proportion to the width of the street, continuous balconies on the 2nd and 5th floors, zinc mansard roofs, buildings aligned strictly to the street line. That is why a Paris boulevard has a single unbroken cornice line running down it, and why the light along one of these streets is so even. Once you know the rule, you cannot stop seeing it. Different buildings, different architects, different decades, and one continuous horizontal line along the top of all of them. A vegetable marsh that became a drill field, that became the place a king accepted a constitution, that became the site of a 100-year celebration. A tower designed by 2 engineers, made beautiful by a 3rd man, and paid for by a bet on ticket sales. And a city of boulevards that looks effortless because somebody wrote down exactly how tall everything was allowed to be. If you want more walks like this one, with the history that goes with them, subscribe and come along.